guys, so we're back with another video on Black Marxism, part 3, Black Radicalism and Marxist Theory, chapter 8, the formation of an intelligentsia, and Western civilization and the renegade of the Black intelligentsia. Page 181. Okay, girl, I'm telling you right now, we're gonna get through. Anyways, we're just gonna start. In the Anglophone, Francophone, and Latin territories of both hemispheres, the Black middle classes had become broadly identified by culture and language. That is, their abilities to absorb the cultures of their ruling classes and the reading and speaking of European tongues. What? Hold up. Let me look up that word. Sorry. Spelled that wrong. It's nation. Dear Carson. Wait. Nope. Dara Carson. What? Oh.
Deracinated.
Deracinated, so deracination. Thank you. Means to uproot or remove someone from something. Deracinated or to deracinate is to uproot or remove someone or something from their native environment or culture. Go ahead with that vocabulary word. Okay, deracination, social and cultural alienation had become the measure of their civility, loyalty, and usefulness. Think about that. The more that you become miseducated, guys, where'd that book at? Ugh. And this book talks about like the way that the more someone becomes more assimilated into the European dominant culture, the less human that they are seen by said dominant culture too. It's like, you can't win. You can't win. So be a Black person. Anyways, shut up, Alana. Sorry. Deracinate. Oh, and of course they shared with the masses of Blacks the knowledge that these veneers. What's that word? What's that poem? I wear the mask, we wear the mask that smile, wait, that grins and smiles, that hides our eye. We wear the mask, we wear the mask. We wear the mask that grins and lies, it hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile with torn and bleeding hearts we smile and mouth the myriad of subtleties. That's what Paul Laurence Dunbar and then also Maya Angelou's are so good. I did not take my Vyvanse. I did just take my Vyvanse. It has not kicked in yet. That's why I'm a little bit all over the place, but that's what makes it fun. Of course, they shared with the masses of Blacks the knowledge that these veneers were the historical artifices of the structuring of authority, caste, race, and class, and that their particular adaptiveness was the mark of privilege and status. As intermediaries between Black labor and the world system in Africa, the Caribbean, and North America, as mediators between Black workers and the social tapestry woven by capitalist-determined forms of production, their skills were functional and the naturalness with which they obtained them apparently so. In the West Indies as well as Africa, systems of colonial education tortured these complements of imperialism. In North America, in the decades following the Civil War, similar apparatuses were to be found in the southern states. Of his sector of the African diaspora, James, C.L.R. James, has said, in every West Indian island in those days from 1900 for the first 20 or 30 years, in every West Indian island in those days from the 1900s for the first 20 or 30 years, there was always a secondary school, always one. In the school I went to, there was 9 masters. 8 of them were either from Oxford or Cambridge, and the one who wasn't was a drawing master. Well, you needn't to go to Oxford or Cambridge to be a drawing master. Hold up. Girl, we're literally almost done with chapter 8. Like, it's this page, and then we're done. And then we're on chapter 9, and that's W.E.B. Du Bois. I love that man. Love him down. Love him down. His chapter is a little bit long, but we'll get through it. Of course. Still, for these black middle strata, just as it was the case for the vast majority of blacks, the dominant class and whites in general were not I don't think my brain is working. Still, for these black middle strata, just as it was the case for the vast majority of blacks, the dominant class and whites in general were not intimates of any immediate sort. I was gonna say immediates of any immediate sort, but and I think my brain just had a brain fart. In the Caribbean and Africa, for the most part, whites were of a relatively small number. In Latin and North America, where European populations were statistically dominant, for most blacks, the whites were existentially a distant, fearful, and oppressive presence. Whites marked the landscape, and in a way, the boundaries of black life, their lives, their habits, their very appearance, the testament and detail of a cruel and unyielding order of social and spiritual regulation. For the radical black ideologues, almost entirely circumscribed by the native petite bourgeoisie, it was not only inevitable but also imperative that they would first acquire the stance of internal aliens. Those of special interest here bear this out. From Trinidad came George Padmore, C.L.R. James, Eric Williams, and Oliver Cox. Padmore, born Malcolm Ivan Meredith Nurse, and James were the sons of school headmasters. Eric Williams, and we're going to get into George Padmore in our next book that we're going to read, and it's so good. Eric Williams, one of their most illustrious of prodigal students. Did I say that right? Prodigal? Prodigal. Yeah, we're just going to go. Was a product of the same black petite bourgeoisie, at a somewhat lesser rank. Oliver Cromwell Cox, as his name suggests, was the sons of the middle strata parents who, it appears, have taken the authority of their colonial betters at its word. In North America, W.E.B. Du Bois was reared by the black Burgarts. I don't know if I said that correctly. Amidst the more affluent white children of Great Barrington, Massachusetts. As he recalled his childhood in one of his autobiographies, Dark Water. That's another book we can get. Why is it paused? Pause. Wait a minute. It's a 22. It's a chopper. As he recalled in his childhood, in one of his autobiographies, Dark Water, it was some time before he discovered that he was colored, and by then he already absorbed the rather disdainful attitudes of his peers towards the few Southern European immigrant families that made their appearance in the Great Barrington. Only Richard Wright, among the radical black thinkers upon whom we shall lay emphasis, came from the black substrata. But even here, the son of a sometime... Let me look this word up too. I just don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know what the word is. Itinerant. Traveling from place to place. Itinerant Mississippi farmer and general laborer who was also, on his mother's side, the heir of a family with middle strata pretensions. Again, with the exception of Wright, they had all begun their adult lives destined for professional careers. Their childhood had borne the marks particular to the black middle strata. The presumption that being black was incidental to their expected social stations. They were launched into maturity, as Wright would declare for himself during one of his moments of acute alienation, as representatives of the West. Eventually, this would prove to be the source of their contradictory compulsions, their strengths, and their weaknesses. Among the vitalizing tool of the radical intelligentsia, of course, the most crucial was words. Words were their means of placement and signification, the implements for discovery and revelation. I was going to say relevation. I don't know. Girl, I don't know. revelation. With words, they might and did construct new meanings, new alternatives, new realities for themselves and others. But language, that is, Western culture, was more than some recumbent artifact to be used or not as the intelligentsia saw fit. Its place in their lives had been established long before they found the means of mastering it. Indeed, they were themselves, in part, defined by those languages of rule and commerce. In Frantz Fanon's poetic description, they were black skins under white masks. James has quite effectively captured this contradiction. And then here's his little quote. Do I have that book? Yeah, I do. Black skin, white mask. Aimé Césaire, I think that's how you say his name, but I could be wrong, so please correct me. And I were talking one day, and I asked him, where do you come from? He said, well, I grew up in Martinique and went to the Victor, I don't know this guy's last name, Schoelser school. And so I said, what did you do there? He told me Latin and Greek and French literature. And I said, what next? He said, I went to France and I went to the École Normale Supérieure. Girl, I don't know. And I'm not going to really look that up. I said, yes, I know that school. It is famous for producing scholars and communists. Césaire was one of the first in each department. He was one of the finest scholars and was a notable communist. And I said, what did you do there? And he said, Latin and Greek and French literature. Oh. And then I said, where did you go from there? And he said, I went to the Sorbonne. And I said, I suppose you did there Latin and Greek and French literature? And he said, exactly. He said, but there was one more thing. And I asked, what was that? He said, I went back to teach in Martinique. And I went to the Victor, that school, and there I taught Latin and Greek and French literature. And so when Césaire wrote his tremendous attack upon Western civilization in return to my native land, he said that negritude was a statement for some conceptualizations, and said that negritude was a statement for some concepts of civilization which the black people had and which would be important in any development of civilization away from the capitalist society. He was able to make this ferocious attack upon Western civilization because he knew it inside out. He had spent some 20 years studying it. As it had been for Césaire, so it was for all of them. They would all pass through the prepossessing claims of bourgeois ideology for Western cultural superiority with their only modestly disguised racialism. But eventually they would emerge convinced that a larger and different achievement was required. At first, they would believe that the answer lay in the vision of class struggle, the war between brothers, as Julius, I don't want to butcher that, so Nyerere would characterize Marxist socialist theory. That conception, too, would prove to be insufficient. As Cox would write in his own summary considerations of Marx and Engels, their conceptualization of capitalism was only a partial realization of the historical forces that had created the black ideologues and that they sought to comprehend and defeat. I don't know this word either. Damn. I've heard this word, I just don't know how to pronounce it. Where'd it go? Oh.
Ineluctable.
Ineluctably, meaning unable to be resisted or avoided. Okay, as we shall see, the events that did
Ineluctable.
Ineluctably.
Ineluctable.
Ineluctable. Ineluctably. Ineluctably. Unable to resist or avoid. As we shall see, the events that did most to shape their era, the crisis of world capitalism, the destructive dialect of imperialism and the historical and ideological revelations of the naivete of Western socialism drove them into a deeper consciousness. Appropriately, what Padmore found it necessary to do in the mid-1930s. Right in the early 1940s, and James at the end of that decade was later eschewed by Césare's declaration in 1956. What I demand of Marxism and communism is that they serve the black peoples, not that the black peoples serve Marxism and communism. Philosophies and movements must serve the people, not the people to the doctrine and the movement. A doctrine is of value only if it is conceived by us and for us and revised through us. We consider it our duty to make common cause with all who cherish truth and justice in order to form organizations able to support effectively the black peoples in their present and future struggle, their struggle for justice, for culture, for dignity, for liberty. Because of this, please accept my resignation from the party. Oop. He said, peace out. Let me put a little mark there. We'll do yellow because I don't have that many yellow ones on my book. From such moments as these, each in his own time turned his face to the historical tradition of Black liberation and became Black radicals. They began the realization of their history and their theoretical task. We shall now consider how this came about and what were its several theoretical and ideological significations. We shall proceed historically, adhering as closely as it is possible to the processes that encompassed scholarship, practice, and consciousness, and eventually spanned historiography and the development of a theory of Black struggle. As we shall discover, the contributions of these intellectuals are enormous, their productivity massive. For these reasons, necessarily, we shall explore only a portion of their work. Hopefully, our review will touch on the more important parts. Much, however, will remain still to be said, understood, and discussed. Theirs is a living legacy. But always we must keep in mind that their brilliance was also derivative. Their truer genius was in the midst of the people of whom they wrote. There, the struggle was more than words or ideas, but life itself. Big purr, big purr. Okay, get it. Now we're on chapter 9. Historiography and the Black radical tradition. And then this will take in W.E.B. Du Bois. Okay. Thanks for listening, y'all.